Hello, beautiful beings. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. To anyone who's new, this channel is dedicated to the life, work, and teachings of a very special being named Bruno Groening, and a warm welcome back to anyone who's been here before. For someone who's new, this may not be the best video for you, but who knows? It might be the best. I'm going to share a little bit about the next phase of what I've discovered in my own journey with Bruno Groening and these teachings. So, I haven't made a video in a while, and I wasn't sure. And a couple times I tried over the last couple months, and there were always technical difficulties. And I sat with that, and I finally got clear that I just needed to step back from doing that. And partially because I had become a little too devoted to Bruno Groening's teachings. Said another way, I had become not too devoted, I'm joking, but I had become a little too dogmatic, which is not a laughing matter. So very specifically, I shared about a healing that I received from spiritual bypass, which is a very complex, we could say, delusion, condition, addiction. You can see the video about it under Miraculous Healing Reports. And at a certain point, what I realized is that I was going to need to employ more things than just tuning in. And this was very confusing. And I've kind of been grappling with this for years. Like, when is it okay to take herbs? When is it okay to see a counselor? When Bruno said God has everything we need. So does that mean I just tune in? How do these things fit together? And so I actually did less tuning in and less focus on Bruno Groening's work. And I did more focus on coaching, receiving coaching, doing journaling, getting more active in my body. Now, these things are not mutually exclusive by any means. But the question I was sitting with and struggling with is, well, if God is unlimited, why won't this heal with just through tuning in? And I don't have a clear answer. My best answer is that this earth is a school. Bruno very clearly taught that we are here to learn. And some lessons in this school require us to go out and explore different things above and beyond tuning in, to explore relationships, to explore our own minds or our hearts through introspection or counseling or journaling or making art. And so I finally had the breakthrough with that healing. I was still tuning in, but a lot less. But it was more like I was still tuning in, but I was focusing less on some of Bruno's teachings. And the breakthrough came through a combination of tuning in, journaling, introspection, receiving coaching, receiving counseling, through engaging in healing work with other people. There's a lot of power that can happen when two people have good intention and they're really authentic with each other and vulnerable. When you share something that you're scared to share, and then the other person receives it and hears it, and then they share something they were scared to share, it can be profoundly healing. So it's a question I've been struggling with literally for, over 10 years now, is tuning in enough? And my answer is yes. And ... The ultimate teaching, I believe, is to follow God's will, to align ourselves with infinite, limitless love, goodness, harmony, aka God, and be guided. And sometimes that means exploring other healing modalities. Does that mean the divine power can't heal everything? No. God's infinite. God's power is infinite. And God has, in my understanding and my experience, other plans for us above and beyond just tuning in. And so I almost feel scared to say that. And tuning in has saved my life. I was just looking over at a picture of Bruno with such gratitude. And we're here to learn. We're here to grow. So through this process, I got more in touch with my emotions. I got in touch with some of my passions and my interests. And I reconnected, I'm in this process of reconnecting with old friends, even reconnecting with my mom, which that warrants a whole video in and of itself, the healing that happened in the relationship with my mother. So for me, the bottom line is what works. And Bruno Groening once said, it doesn't matter how you find God, just that you find God. So that doesn't mean don't tune in at all. But for me, that means that tuning in isn't the only way to find God and healing. In essence, you could say I was being kind of religious in the negative sense of the word of, I'm just going to tune in. There's kind of that rigidity. Well, it ends up, it's possible to find God or connect to God through art, through relationships, through journaling, through counseling, through obviously through nature. And I knew that, and I think most of us know that. And it's easy to get rigid and dogmatic. And tuning in is so amazing that, and the healings I've experienced and other people have experienced are so miraculous. So what I'm realizing through all of this is it always comes down to seeking to be guided. Because I had the idea, like, okay, I've got this problem, I'm going to tune in and it's going to heal. That's a good thought, but that's not listening to God. A purer approach would have been, Lord, Father, Mother, Source, I have this problem that I'm struggling with. What's the way to heal it? What would you have me do? But this also goes to a deeper level of healings are not just physical. Bruno Groening said that physical healings were only 10% of his work. This particular burden, spiritual bypass, was more a burden of my character or my personality. You could maybe say of my soul. I don't know, I'm totally comfortable with that. But it was like a deep-seated personality. You could say a sub-personality or part of my personality. And I'm convinced Bruno was with me the whole way and guiding the process. And it's like I needed to change. I needed to change my thinking, my behavior, my feelings, how I lived my life, what I did with my time. And while tuning in can fuel that, it's almost like action was necessary, right? It's like tuning in gave me the fuel and gave me the guidance, and then I had to go out and literally live differently. Maybe that's for this particular instance, maybe that's the best way of saying it. So I don't feel that I have clear-cut answers to this question, but I believe I have things I'm pointing to. I can share what worked for me in healing this particular burden. And I just keep coming back to that sentence of Bruno's that physical healings are only 10% of his work. Well, what's the other 90%? I've talked a lot about surrendering to God and being guided by God. But what about healings that are much deeper? Let's say, there's physical healings and there's something like maybe, let's say, depression, which we could call a mental illness. But what about these things that have really wound their way into our personality that really interfere with living? Well, in my experience, it took more than tuning in for me. And there are other things which I'm sure tuning in would just be enough. I met a woman, had profound trauma. It's really horrible to hear what happened to her as a child. She was violated sexually. She was brainwashed as a child and abused and just horrible. One of the most heart-jerking stories I've ever heard. And tuning in was sufficient. Obviously, she'd done counseling and done other things in the past, but that was sufficient for her. At least that's all she shared. So it's not to say that the divine power can't heal a particular, but that's very different. That was an injury to herself. It's almost like I had created a false self and had to uncreate it, not just through prayer and meditation, but through action and becoming a different person. So most of my videos on this channel, I just try to share what Bruno taught. But every now and then I feel it's necessary to share, just honestly share about my journey and my reflections, because Bruno Groening, that we know of, isn't here in a body right now. So in some ways, each of us has to find our own way with his teachings. And in essence, yes, turn to Bruno and turn to God for guidance, but also, well, as Bruno said, become our own physicians and become our own healers under the direction of God. And, Bruno once referred to himself as a nurse. The nurse carries out the orders of the doctor. And our dear nurse, Bruno Groening. So thank you so much for listening to this. I hope it spurred some insights. I'm going to turn comments on for this video. So I'd love to hear your reflections and your own experiences. And I wish you a blessed, blessed day. Take care. So much love.